What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. Today I got a solid dude on. He is a Marine Scout sniper. Pretty bad dude, to tell you the truth. Matt Long, how you doing, dude?
Doing good. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Long time no see. Long time no see.
Right? Only about 3 hours ago, huh?
Exactly. I was trying to take a nap because I wanted to get ready for this pod, but unfortunately, I was like a little too amped about it and I couldn't sleep, so I just went and got a Mountain Dew, and hopefully that will keep me up to par. So we'll just dive right into it, dude.
Okay.
So I guess I got a question for you. Just what made you want to join the military?
So I'll just start from the beginning for me. So I was born and raised in Texas. Texas is a very, very proud state. Texas is all about, serving your state, your country. It's all pride about all that kind of stuff. I grew up playing football and all this, that, and the other. Just always thought about the fact that I always wanted to join, but I didn't know for sure. When I was in like 8th grade, there was a movie called Sniper with Tom Berenger in it. And I remember hearing about that or watching it with one of my buddies. It was a rated R movie. I wasn't supposed to watch it, but totally did. Over at my friend's house. And loved the movie. Thought like, man, that'd be so sick. That's what I want to that's what I would like to do when I grow up. Maybe someday, When I got in high school, it was a debate. It just seemed like I was something that I would have probably ended up doing anyway, at least from the observation of everyone else. So I always played out in the woods, always went running, did cross country, track, played football, stuff like that. And but I was still debating on it. I still didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. When I got out of high school, I decided to get into welding. So then I welded for about 3 years in Texas. And then it just came upon me to one day that I didn't want to grow up and think or ponder on what could have been or what might have been. So I was like, well, let's just do this. Let's go ahead and get going. If I'm going to do this, let's go ahead and do it. And so went down to the recruiters, went to I went to the Marines and the Army because those are like the two guys that have infantry units, right? So they had infantry. I knew I wanted to do something infantry related, wanted to go along those lines. I knew that the Navy had the Navy SEALs, but that was a really, really hard thing to get into. And if you failed, well, there's no infantry second chance there. There's just Navy SEALs or you're a seaman. So, so I was like, how about the Marine Corps? The guy literally told me, I don't know what you're thinking, but I don't think you're cut out for this. Why don't you go talk to the Navy or the Air Force? I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, fine then. You're gonna be like that, dude. You're gonna throw me off. All right, fine. I'll go talk to the Army then. I go up to the Army, and I was 23 at the time, and I was like, you know what? Let's see what they can do. Let's see what can happen. And I went through the whole process. Got all the way up to like the signing portion. Took my ASVAB, scored pretty decent on it. And they said, well, you can basically choose what you want to do. I was like, cool. I would like to sign or get a contract going so that I could go into try out for Special Forces. So it's not a solid thing. You just get the opportunity. So basically, you would sign, you go through boot camp, you pass boot camp, great. You're now an Army soldier. Then you would go to Ranger School. If you pass Ranger School, then that's the next level. And then you would go into a tryout, or like you could say like an indoctrination for Special Forces. And they had this whole thing set up, and it was like a $35,000 sign-on bonus. And I was just like, I don't know. It's not exactly what I want to do. What I wanted to really do is be a Marine Corps Scout Sniper. That was like my ultimate goal in life and in the military. That's what I'd always grown up kind of wanting to do. It's like the whole ideology behind, one shot, one kill. If you're hunting, you're hunting. You know what I mean? So that's what really led me to go back to the recruiter, and I was like, yeah, I want to join the Marine Corps. He's like, okay, well, what do you want to do then? And I said, infantry. And they were like, you mean to tell me you actually want to sign up for infantry? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. It was like, well, we don't have any slots right now for infantry. Believe it or not, a lot of people actually want to sign up for infantry. It's one of the few MOSs that they can't just throw you in. At least during my time, they didn't just throw you into the infantry. You had to like actually sign up because there's only a few slots that they would get per month or whatever. And so you'd have to actually wait to join the infantry of the Marine Corps. So I was like, that's what I want to do, because I had my mind set on being the scout sniper. I already like Googled like all of what I needed to do to become a scout sniper, and I needed to be infantry in order to at least get those first couple of steps in. So, and then
real quick question.
Yeah.
Real quick question. What is infantry like? There's all these terms, you know, if you join the Army, you're part of this. If you join Air Force, you could do this. What is infantry when it comes to being a Marine? How, like, what lanes can you go in by being an infantryman?
So an infantryman in the Marine Corps is your bare bones backbone of the Marine Corps. Everything in the Marine Corps is there. Every job, every MOS is all there primarily to support the infantry. The infantry are the guys that are kicking in doors and killing the enemy. They're the ones that are going to be the ones that fight the war. Every other MOS, every other job, including being pilots of helos and aircraft, are all there to support the infantry. Everything is all about them and them fighting the enemy. So, you know, in the Army and in the Marine Corps, it's all about driving. Everything's driving to support them so that they can do their job.
So it's like the boots on the ground is the infantry guys.
Right. They're the guys that are actually gonna win the war. Yeah, you have you know, your special forces units and stuff like that. They're all there to soften targets and stuff like that. So your main infantry guys could show up and occupy, or like they go through a clearing process and then occupy. So those are the guys who are doing all the truly heavy lifting. And, you know, they're the guys that are going to be there for the long haul. Every other unit, every other group of people are all there to support them.
Yeah, you guys are in the thick of it. Infantrymen, yeah. Basically, okay. That's what's up. So you joined, and how was boot camps, and how was like the sniper training? Like, how did all that go down?
So boot camp was 13 weeks. You know, when you're going through it, it seems like the most horrible thing. You're doing some of the most humiliating things that you know, would not normally go through.
Like what?
You know, like nut to butt. That's one of the things that we would say, you know, when we're getting ready for showers. So when you're first there, you know, like they remove any quarrels whatsoever about being next to another man. You know, hairy or not, you're standing really close to that other man, like almost face in his hairy back, and you're about to run through the showers together. Like they'll get you all online, right? They'll go in there and turn on all the shower heads. You have to basically stay with them. You're staying with these guys walking through the showers. Or not, well, you're briskly walking. It's not
slowly walking and washing, or what?
Well, you walk through it first to get wet, right? And then they get you back online. Then they tell you to rub your head. So you're rubbing your head. And then they'll tell you, you know, to rub your chest. So you're rubbing your chest. Okay. And then they'll tell you to rub the guy in front of you's back. You know, you're like, oh, you know, like this is. Anyway, it's all there to break you down, dude. Like humiliating things. You know, it's nothing like too crazy, but it's like enough, right? You're getting yelled at the whole time. It's a shock factor, like a lot of people have never experienced in their lives. You know, some people have never been yelled at, much less like being yelled at and forced to do things in a fast, obedient manner. So, you know, it's a big shock. You're kind of like walking around like this all the time, like waiting for, you know, trying to hide from the DI, but you can't really hide, you know, or your drill instructor. So, you know, and these guys are like, you know, they go through schools to like perfect this whole whole thing, So yeah, these, it's just like funny stuff like that. But like, you don't think it's funny when you're going through it, But when you're done and out, it's like, oh man, yeah, that was hilarious,
Yeah, it's probably something to shoot the breeze with the other Marines about, like, oh yeah, I remember boot camp, this and that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Yeah, and then and then even the hikes and stuff like that. Like I remember like some of these hikes that we did in boot camp, and I just remember being a first time Marine, like going through the whole thing. You're hiking on Camp Pendleton, right? Because like Camp Pendleton's, we have Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, then we have Camp Pendleton in California, and Camp Pendleton's got all the hills, so we're known as like the one that actually has hills, whereas they deal with more heat and humidity out there and swamp type situations in Camp Lejeune. But those are the only two places that boot camp happens. You have MCRD San Diego. It's a Marine Corps recruit depot, and down in San Diego, that you go, you're pretty much there about 75-80% of your time. Then you go to Camp Pendleton to do some of your other training. Anyway, you're doing these hikes, and you're like, at the time, you're thinking, man, this is the worst thing ever. Like, oh man, this is like, oh, this is so like crazy, right? It can't get much worse than this. And then you go to your SOI, or School of Infantry. If you're a non-infantryman, you go to MCT. Forget exactly what MCT is. Wasn't my group. We went to School of Infantry, or ITB, Infantry Training Battalion, and that's like, I forget exactly how long. I want to say it's like 5 to 8 weeks, somewhere in there. And that's like where you go through more specific like infantry training. And so everything progresses, right? So you're thinking that boot camp was really tough and hard. You go to ITB and you're like, man, this was way worse than boot camp. Like the hikes I'm doing now, they're requiring us to go faster. It's like a whole different process, right? And then once you get out of ITB, you go to your Victor unit. That's probably like the biggest shock you have. You go to your Victor unit, or your infantry battalion that you're going to be with at least for like the next 3 years. Because by the time you're done with boot camp and SOI, well, it's not like a whole year. It's like about a half a year that you're kind of done with everything, and then you go to your Victor unit. But with that being said, yeah, you go to your Victor unit, you're terrified, because these are all like guys that are in the fleet. Like, these are actual infantrymen. These guys don't, they're different. It's a whole different ball game. You get hazed. Go ahead.
Have they already seen combat?
Some of them. At the time when I was joining, a lot of the guys from Iraq were mostly out. We had like onesies and twosies, and believe it or not, those are like the cooler guys that you come across. It's like these old, like, at least for me, coming from Iraq, those guys coming from Iraq. They were in my unit when I joined my unit, which was 3-5, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. And those guys were super, super cool. All the guys that hadn't been to combat were like, they were crazy, man. I mean, like, we're talking like, at night, whenever I first joined my Victor unit, like that night, whenever they came back. So we had like a couple of weeks where they weren't home yet. They were coming home from a MU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, right? So these guys have been on boat and all this, that, and the other, and we haven't had to deal with them yet. So we're boots, like that's what we call like new guys, new people, like greenhorn or whatever you want to call them, boots. But that's what they called them at the time anyway. And so we were boots. And the night they came home, I've never seen so much chaos, dude. Like, I'm not even joking on that, like, chaos. We're talking like people that are breaking into rooms to get to us. Like, they're like breaking into rooms, like opening up the windows, and they come in there to haze you. Like they're coming in there, like they're like screaming at you, getting you to drink beer. They watch you and laugh at you. Like, they're doing all kinds of stuff. They're making you bear crawl, like, with just your underwear. Like, I mean, so, I'm talking.
Because they're higher ranks than you, do you have to do what they say?
It's not necessarily just higher ranks. Like, some of these guys are the same rank as you. It's just they're more senior than you in time and service,
Okay.
So, like, it's just like you have that mutual respect, because these are the guys that you're going to be with for however long they're still in the Marine Corps, and until they get out or go to a different unit. Like, these are all guys that you're you're serving with for some time, and you're the boot, and that's what you're expected to do is obey commands.
Nice.
Like one night, so there was two boots in a room next to me and this other guy, right? And we had closed off the door and put a door stop between the bathrooms because the bathrooms were connected between these two rooms, right? So there's two Marines in one room, two Marines, me included in one of them, So and the bathrooms were connected. Well, I'm being smart. I'm like putting door stops underneath the door stop so they can't like somehow manage to kick the door in or get the door open. And then I do the same thing on the bathroom door. I was like, no matter what, you cannot open this door, dude. You cannot open this door. I don't care who's screaming. I don't care whatever. You can't open this door.
Are you going to sleep or something? Like
yeah, this is like at probably like 11:30 at night, and these guys are just partying hard, dude. They're drinking, they're screaming. You're hearing people scream, boots going, ah, sir, like screaming bloody murder. It's just like it's just chaos, right?
Okay.
It's just how it is when these units come home and they got some boots, right? And so I'm hearing our neighbors, like, they managed to get into their room. And I told them, like, do not let that door open, bro. Because if you do, they're going to come in here. They're going to mess with us hard, dude. I was like, don't do it. And sure enough, they managed to convince them or break into the room next to us. And they started using them to, like, get to us. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. Like, if you want to obey and like let them come in here, go ahead. Sure enough, they come in. We're like, oh man, here we go. So, they carry us into the bathroom. They turn on all the hot water. And they close the bathroom door. So it's like a sauna in this thing. And we're having to do like wall sits, crunches, push-ups, and all this like water that's all over the floor, like making us scream. And like random things.
I'd have been pissed at the homie that let him in.
Oh yeah, I was.
Like, you son of a gun.
Oh, dude, I totally was. But like I was older than a lot of these guys, so I was 23 when I joined. Most guys joining the Marine Corps joined at like 18, 19, sometimes even 17. So it's just like different walks of life. The funny thing is I was able to buy beer. Whereas a lot of the other boots weren't able to. So I think that they gave me a little bit more grace when I was in the infantry battalion, or at least Kilo Company. That was about 3 months later, or I want to say like 3 or 4 months later, I found out about the sniper induct, and I had basically wanted to be doing this the whole time. It was like the whole purpose of me joining the Marine Corps was to become a scout sniper, or at least try to.
Right.
And so I told my chain of command, got all the way up to a certain staff sergeant, and he laughed at me and said, "You're a boot." Heck no. He used different wordage, F no, anyway. He's like, "You're a boot. You won't be able to do this until after your first deployment, all that and the other." So, but I had read the little thing that was advertising the indoctrination for the sniper platoon, and it said all guys. Like, it didn't matter. There was no requirement on the on time of service, whatever. It was like a battalion need. They needed snipers and or guys to join the sniper platoon. So I was like, well, I'll go talk to the platoon sergeant of the sniper platoon. I go talk to him, and he's like, yeah, you can totally do it. Now, granted, if you don't make the indoctrination, you're going to be dealing with the fact that you came to the indoctrination despite what your platoon sergeant said.
Will you have to go back to him?
If I would have failed the indoctrination for Scout Sniper Platoon, I would have had to go back to that staff sergeant and face. So
yeah,
that was a lot of motivation for me to not fail. And so our sniper indoctrination was about 3 days. No, it was 3 days. Every night we got maybe 3 hours of sleep, because it'd be basically like 6 hours total, right? That was the total amount of sleep that we were getting as a whole. But they wanted to establish the fact that, you're going to be on an hour, off an hour. So you get to sleep an hour, and then you would wake up. Your other guy, that your partner, I guess you could say, would wake you up, and then you would be standing there for an hour doing a watch, right? You're just like, it's like training it's the going through the process of what you would basically do when you're in the sniper platoons, because for every man that you have in your section or team, every one guy out of let me think of what I'm trying to say here. So if you had two guys, one guy's down, one guy's up, no matter what. Like that's usually how it's going to go. If you have four guys, two guys are up, two guys are down, meaning two guys are sleeping, two guys are awake and actively searching for problems, right? Security. That's important because things that had happened in Iraq and other places, like that's just lessons learned. You don't allow very many people to stay asleep. You want to keep a pretty good amount of people awake, at least training, even in training, right?
It makes sense. Always keep watch.
Yeah, watch. You want to do security. So anyway, so very minimal amount of sleep. The first day of the indoctrination, the first part of it was like 4:30 in the morning. You're showing up. You get a gear inspection. If you don't have any of the gear, you're kicked out. You're immediately kicked out. That's the whole important part of it is your received orders. You know what's supposed to be in your pack because you've been given a list. And if it's not there, then you've shown that you're irresponsible and you don't need to be here. So gear inspection. Immediately after that, it was like a PFT. So like your PFT stands for physical fitness test. So you have to do a 3-mile run, a max number of pull-ups, max number of pull-ups, and then also a max number of sit-ups. So that gives you basically a score. If you're able to do like 20 pull-ups, that's the max amount that you can get for the maximum amount of points. That gives you a certain points like system. So you get the points, and when you reach to 20, you've gotten all that you could. When you do 100 crunches, it's the same thing. Like you have to get the same, like it's a certain number system, and then 3-mile run is based on time. And if you make it a 19 or 18-minute 3-mile, you've had basically 20 pull-ups, 100 crunches, and a 18-minute 3-mile gives you a 300 PFT score, which means a perfect score. So anything that's just beyond that, it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't count. If it's below that, that's when you start running into problems. And to be in the sniper platoon, you have to have a first-class PFT. So basically, you have to be able to do like 20 pull-ups, 100 crunches, and then you probably need to run like around a 19 to 20-minute 3-mile. That's about where you're at.
Okay.
So you do the PFT. Immediately we go up to the radio or the helo pad, which is up on top of a hill. We fill a sandbag. We call it a pig egg because in the Marine Corps Scout Sniper platoons, it's one of those things where everything revolves around pigs. I think I've told you about this before. It's kind of funny. We call normal infantry guys slugs, sloppy, lazy, untrained gunmen. So sloppy, lazy, untrained gunman. And then once you're in a sniper platoon, you become what's called a pig. So a pig is considered a professionally instructed gunman. So that means like you've been in a sniper platoon, you've learned all the knowledge and stuff like that, and then you get slated to go to sniper school. When you go through sniper school and you've graduated, you made it through and graduated, then you're considered what's called a hog, which is a hunter of gunmen. And then once you go through the four different sniper schools, that's considered a razorback. So anyway, that's like a razorback being the most, BA.
Yeah. And there's only 4?
There's only 4 primary sniper schools. Yeah. So you have this Scout Sniper Basic course, Scout Sniper Team Leader course, which is kind of like a leadership role, teaching you how to run and take care of a sniper platoon, or not sniper platoon, but sniper team. There's Urban Sniper, which is basically like a large shooting package. So you're shooting like, I want to say like 6,000 to 7,000 rounds of sniper ammunition, both day and night, like throughout the whole thing. You're shooting day, night for like 4 weeks. You're shooting sniper ammo, you're shooting M4 ammo or 5.56, and then you're also shooting your M9 or your Beretta 9mm. And then at the end of that, it was aerial platform shooting. So I got to shoot out of a helicopter. Got to learn how to shoot, how to set up your position, how to set up everything on the side of a helicopter, and then be able to shoot targets from a side of a helo.
Didn't you shoot? You were telling me one time you were inside of a helo, and one of the training exercises was you had to shoot a target on a boat that was like going up and down.
Yeah. So getting ready for my second deployment, I was part of what's called the MRF, Marine Reaction Force, and I was in this particular situation, I was going to be their aerial platform shooter. Basically, I was going to be up in the helo, kind of doing the guardian angel type thing. It sounds cooler than it is, be honest with you, because basically you're taking the idea of a machine gun, which is like a cone, right? Like it's not the typical sniper one shot one kill thing. It's like you're shooting at a target and you're gonna have a cone instead of having like a really really small size hole you're trying to shoot at. You're shooting in a cone because the helicopter is yeah. The helicopter is it's moving around. You're moving around. Like there's a lot of things that are causing that to like shake and vibrate. So it's not like a super super sexy like sniper kill, but yeah, I was shooting out. It was a boat called the Atlas, and the Navy had bought it specifically for two purposes: one to practice aerial platform shooting on, and then also for the Force Recon Marines to do visit board search and seizures. So like training them how to like go up to this boat, tag onto it, get up into it, and go through the whole clearing process. Navy bought that vessel primarily just for that reason. Yeah, I got to do that off the coast of Oceanside.
Nice.
About 3 miles off coast. So
nice,
it's like wild being out there. But yeah, going back to the indoc. Long story short, you go through hell, and you're hoping that you make it to the very end. One, it's primarily don't quit, give it a lot of heart. There's got to be a certain will in you to carry on. When you're in that situation, because you're dog tired, you haven't been eating a whole bunch. You've been getting classes, you've been getting like all this, that, and the other, and it's all crammed into 3 days. So it's like a lot of physical activity, and that's just like to see if you have the will and the capabilities to at least join the platoon. That basically got me into the sniper platoon. Once I got into the sniper platoon, went through all kinds of like shooting with the team and everything like that. And then that led me into, I was still a pig, and that led me into my first deployment. So
I never knew you went twice. What does deployment mean? Because you're like, I had my first deployment, and then, oh yeah, part of my second deployment. I always thought deployment was like, is that when you go to a different country and you serve?
So deployment means like basically you've gone out of training and you're going to do the job that the Marine Corps has sent you to physically do. So like my first deployment would mean like my Afghanistan deployment. So I was with 3-5 as a pig, went to Afghanistan for my first deployment. Now that translated into being out of America, going into Afghanistan. My second deployment means that we got activated to go onto what's called a MU, Marine Expeditionary Unit. So there's like a couple of things that you can call a deployment. Yeah. But primarily it's for infantry guys, it's going to be either a combat deployment or a MU. So combat deployment meaning wherever we're needed to go fight a war, or a MU, which is a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which means you're basically going out with the Navy to be America's 911 call.
Gotcha.
So, because Marines have to be able to be deployed within 24 hours.
We'll get into it eventually, but how many deployments did you take? Like you had 1, 2, how many were there?
I did 2 total.
Okay. And which ones was there? 1 MU and then 1 action? Or
yeah, so my first deployment, so the very first one I went on was to Afghanistan.
That was
Uh,
the first one you did was action. Like,
right, right.
okay.
And yeah, that one was the first deployment. That was the first experience I had in the Marine Corps that was not training and had to go do something.
Okay.
Um,
Um, do you mind if I I want to settle in for this one because I
okay.
know from talking with you, you right now you've gone through the training process, you know how you started and joined the Marines and what you wanted to do in the Marines, which was be a scout sniper. You went through all the stuff, got the hazing, all that, and then you buckled down and became a professional at being a scout sniper. Am I right at this point before your first deployment?
Right. So in essence, yes, I was trained to be a scout sniper, but in our definition, I wasn't because I hadn't been to sniper school and graduated yet.
Okay.
That
And
would
that was,
happen. That would
sorry.
happen after the deployment because like
Okay.
we didn't have
Okay.
enough time, and there was plenty of other people before me that were in the platoon that got their school slot first. Um,
So you were a pig, right?
Pig, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
meaning like I had been in the sniper platoon for a while, but I hadn't been to sniper school to go get my hog's tooth or get like graduated from.
You basically didn't have the time to get the hog's tooth before you were deployed.
Correct.
Um, so let's get into your deployment, dude.
All
So
right.
before you take off on this, uh, I just remember when you first told me, I had been working with you for like 2 years, maybe three. I knew you were a Marine. I knew you were very proud of being a Marine, and I was always proud of you. But I didn't know what you had been through, and then you randomly I would ask you a question and you'd tell me, and I'd like almost want to stop working and be like, what? So with that in mind, can you tell me what it was like on your first day of deployment, flying into Afghanistan, not necessarily on plane, but like you land. I know you fly over there, you land, and then you get in the helicopter. Just kidding. The helicopter, and you take off. You take off to your first base, right? Or
Patrol base, yeah.
patrol base. So can you take it from there? Tell me what that was like.
All right. So I can't remember the airport, the Air Force base that we took off from with a commercial flight to get over to Manas. But that was like a 23-hour flight. So like we're all geared up. Our battalion commander, kind of like in that documentary for the 2-5. You kind of see the camera. One of the guys had a camera, and they were talking about like the battalion commander coming up and looking at you in the eyes, shaking your hand, and be like, basically like, are you ready for this? So that was kind of like a sobering thing because like it was like, whoa, that was different. Like Kevin Frame was saying in the documentary, so we're getting on this plane, we're flying for quite a while. We get to Manas. We spend a couple of days or maybe a week there in Manas. I can't remember exactly where that was, but it was called Manas. We flew from there we stopped at Germany to Manas to Camp Leatherneck. So Camp Leatherneck was on a C-17. That was the first time I've ever been on a C-17. It's a huge transport plane. Really, really loud. Like all these movies that, show that you're able to talk. Like, you can't talk for nothing, dude. Like it's like, oh, dude, what's going on? Like you're like, what? Yeah, anyway, yeah, that's one of the funniest and hardest parts of like watching movies. It's like they're able to carry on like a normal conversation. It's like no. Anyway, so we fly into Camp Leatherneck. So Camp Leatherneck you could think of as like a massive base. So all of NATO, not all of NATO, but NATO's forces were, I want to say there was another base in Afghanistan that they used, but Camp Leatherneck was like the primary one for all the Helmand province or all the southern portion of Afghanistan. So we go to Camp Leatherneck, and they're kind of getting us acclimatized to the weather there. It was kind of hot when we first got there. Desert area, kind of stuff, Middle Eastern place anyway. And we go through like this whole refresher on how to use the balun, which the balun is basically like a military version of a metal detector. It's like this fancy metal detector and all this, that, and the other. And basically saying this is your lifeline. Get used to it. Figure out how to use it in case your guy goes down that does know how to use it. You need to know how to use this. And we weren't thinking nothing of it, nothing too much of it. You know, we're like, oh yeah, like whatever, Well, yeah, we'll take the training, but it's like anything else. You get all this training and you're just like, dude, you're like, okay, got it. Anyway, long story short, we were there for a couple weeks to get us kind of like in the mindset of we're about to go, because at this point we're in Afghanistan. We're just at a massive base in Afghanistan. Then they start putting us on helos and taking us over there in chunks, So like they're figuring out who and what they're going to send. They send in these helos at different times of the day, at different intervals and stuff like that, all to prevent like a plan for the Taliban to actually shoot down one of the helos coming in and out. Because if you set up a schedule and you keep that same schedule, you're going to run into the problem where you can make a plan behind that and do something about it. And especially if you're going to land there. So very first day going to our patrol base, or our FOB, which is a FOB is like your forward operating base. So you have your massive base, right? That gets translated down into what's called a FOB. So a FOB is kind of like your more small. It's definitely smaller. It has a lot of the things that feed into your patrol bases. A FOB is a forward operating base. So it's like kind of like closer to the action. It's kind of all right there. And that's where the base is supplying the FOB. The FOB supplies your patrol bases. And the patrol bases is where primarily all your infantry guys are running in and out of. And the patrol bases are usually just like a place that we take over and build up to run our operations out of. But first day, going to our FOB, like, oh yeah, we're heading to Afghanistan. Let's get to this. We know this is combat. Let's see what this is all about. All kind of like smiling and grinning and all this and that. The helicopter's kind of shaking and baking a little bit. We're like, no big deal. And then the flares on the side of the helicopter go off, and we're like, what the hell is going on right now? Because this helicopter, you start looking out the window and you're seeing trees start coming by. You're like, oh man. Then you start seeing the rooftops of the mud huts or compounds that these Afghanis have, and the helicopter's really moving back and forth and like doing these kind of evasive maneuvers. We saw the flares pop out. We're like, oh man. You look over there at where the machine gunner's at, hanging out the side of the two windows, and these guys are like, they're all like, moving around and like looking and like they're moving their gun around. You're like, oh wow, we're getting into some serious, like, are they shooting? Because like again, you can't hear anything. Like all you're hearing is just the rotor going off, and it's loud. So like we don't know what's going on outside of the helicopter. As we're coming in to land, the helicopter kind of comes down pretty quick, hits the ground, and they're like, go. We start running, and there's literally like a round or two popping off of the ground as we're running into the FOB, and we were like, okay, I don't know what that was all about, but now we know that we're in a combat zone. We know for a fact that we are for sure in a combat zone now. So it was kind of a good wake-up call to us. Thankfully, nothing became of that particular day. And then just like Logan Stark was talking about in the documentary, it's like the first 1 or 2 days, you're like sitting there smoking a cigarette, right? And you're like just chit-chatting with people. And then all of a sudden you see like there's like a machine gun burst. You hear it, and then there's a round that just skips right between guys, and it just keeps going. You're like, ding! Oh yeah, it's like you see the tracer. Like we saw the actual tracer. Like that was what was wild. You see the tracer come in, which tracer is like a round that has like it's kind of a coating on it that causes it to like light up, like it gets hot. And as it's traveling, it looks like a red hot ember going through the air.
Really fast.
Really fast.
Yeah.
But you can see it.
Yeah.
And that thing's like skipping through, and like there's no telling what other kind of bullets are running around, like so you're just like, wow. And this was like just the first couple of days. And just like I was telling you the other day, So when a unit is getting into country, you're, unless you're the first infantry battalion or unit to go through the whole, like get into the whole process, usually you're doing what's called left seat, right seat. I don't know if you remember that or not, but left seat, right seat would be the unit that you're coming to replace to carry on the mission is there, and you're joining them, and they're basically giving you the rundown of the area. They're taking you on some patrols to kind of talk about some key points and things like that. And eventually the left seat, right seat ends, and the unit that you're coming to replace leaves. But when that happened for us, the Taliban liked to test the resolve of whatever unit was coming into the area. They wanted to see what we were willing to do, like what our responses would be, stuff like that. So what we called Black Friday, they literally attacked up and down our entire AO, or area of operation, right? So they're shooting up and down like all our patrol bases or FOBs. They're shooting up everything all up and down our AO. You could hear gunfire to the far north, to the far south, like everywhere. And so we're shooting back. We're trying to find these guys. We're shooting at, inside some doorways and some windows, like where these guys were shooting at us from, stuff like that. There's guys running up and down these like wadis, or not wadis, but like the compounds are made out of like mud. So like they have like a foot thick wall that goes anywhere from, like, it can be 3 foot off the ground, or it can sometimes be like 16 foot off the ground. And they just do this out of mud. Believe it or not, it's really, really tough stuff. You can shoot a 50 cal with the Rofus round, which the Rofus round's like a steel core penetrator with an incendiary and RDX behind it. So literally it's designed to like punch through tanks. And these rounds aren't punching through this stuff. Like that's how these walls can be. Like it'll scratch the side of it, but it's not going to punch through it.
And this is your fob, right? This is
at our well, Black Friday was like, at this point we've already been moved into like patrol bases.
Okay.
So we've been moved into patrol bases like maybe a month or maybe like a half month to a month into it. So like we've already lost a few guys. We've already sustained like a lot of casualties, because the first couple months we were there, it was like every day we were hearing about somebody getting hit, or somebody dying, or one along those lines. So it was really, really rough couple first months for sure. And but anyway, so Black Friday happens, and we're taking fire. And I told you the other day about the A10, the A10 Warthog. That was the first time I got to see that thing in action. That thing, gnarly, dude. 30 millimeter Gatling gun that shoots like 600 rounds per minute or something like that. It's ridiculously wild to see in action, because like these guys were in the tree line and they were shooting at us, and there were sheep there as well. And this A10 does a gun run on this thing, and it's like you just see, it just looks like fireworks. You hear this brrr, just god awful sound, right? Like it's once you hear it, so distinct, like you know that sound. And you just look over where they're hitting it, and you just see tree limbs, you see body parts and sheep parts just flying everywhere. Like, dude, it just annihilates this whole this whole area. Just wild.
I'm gonna pull up the Warthog. You keep talking, but I'm gonna pull up the Warthog so anybody viewing this can see it.
Yeah. So that was probably the most craziest thing I got to see, apart from like just your normal, well, not normal, gunfire and artillery, stuff like that. But yeah, that A10 Warthog is a wild beast.
So you saw a whole bunch of like kind of walk me through that. You were just chilling, and well, not chilling, but like you're in battle, and then you know the Warhog's coming. And
so we don't know whoever's calling for fire. So the guy that's there's guys that are specifically trained to like talk to air, and like your captains or your lieutenants. Those guys usually call in that stuff. Not usually, most times they will. We managed to get an A10 Warthog on station. I wasn't involved with the calling in of it, but yeah, this I think one of our LTs, our lieutenant managed to get this guy on station, and he happened to be in the area and had munitions, and I was like, yeah, I'm willing to help. And they sent him to that tree line, and there you go. It was it was annihilated. And this whole time we're like shooting like 203, so you like your grenade launcher, your 40 millimeter grenade launchers out of the bottom of your M4s, you're shooting M4 rounds, just trying to respond to the Taliban attacking you, you know. So
That's gnarly. Yeah, that's scary. You were telling me yesterday that all of them are painted this way too.
yeah.
Like
When you see it, it's crazy.
they all
But
look like a shark from hell falling from sky.
Yeah, those things are tanks, man. They're flying tanks. That's why they're designed. They're designed behind that 30 millimeter Gatling gun. It's like takes up half the front of the aircraft. So pretty gnarly thing.
Awesome.
Are you able to see it yet? There we go.
Yeah, I got you, bro.
Gotcha.
I got you. Dude, that's awesome. So you just saw a whole bunch of sheep parts flying through the air and trees just getting blown to bits.
Oh yeah, dude. It was spectacular. I don't know how to. There's no other way to like really describe it. I know it sounds maybe morbid for some, but like it is what it is. It's combat. Sorry.
It'd be nice to have that weapon in combat for sure.
Oh,
if you're in a tight spot and all of a sudden you got somebody calling that thing in, that'll loosen the tension in your shoulders real quick.
Oh yeah, you can watch. There's like all kinds of YouTube videos of like A-10s doing gun runs for the infantry guys, and they have them like recorded, and you can see like it's like a super cheer. Everyone's cheering, like yeah, It's just like it's once that comes around, Taliban doesn't like to play. The Taliban didn't like to play whenever there's loud noises, and especially if one of those came through, and
they scurry back to their holes like cockroaches real quick.
Oh yeah.
I'm not trying to push a story on you, but I love this story that you told me yesterday or a couple days back about how you guys were taking over a radio tower.
Yeah.
Okay, could you tell that story real quick? I love that.
Oh yeah. So the radio tower, probably one of the most memorable. I don't know why it seems more etched into my mind, but yeah, the radio tower. So we've been getting reports from one of the platoons of Lima Company that they were taking a lot of heavy fire and having a big problem with IEDs trying to get to this radio tower. It was like one compound that randomly had like this ginormous radio tower there. That's why we called it the radio tower. Simple and easy. Anyway, so we were like, yeah, we can help you out. We'll come. We had to end up like loading up our gear, getting to a new place just so we could go do this with this with this platoon. And we go really big heavy on the amount of guys that are going on this patrol. So because we can have like really, really good support, right? So en route there, we're making our way to the radio tower, and this random guy comes up to our patrol leader at that time, which was a sergeant, and it's like, hey, I actually know where you're trying to go. And we're like, we're trying to get over to this guy or this building or this compound, and he was like, oh yeah, I can help you out. And seems sketchy. You never know. That's the hardest part about this particular area and how the Taliban like to fight. The Taliban like to fight hidden and among their people. Not afraid to hide behind women and children. It's just who the Taliban are. That's what they do. I mean, granted, they're fighting guerrilla tactics. I mean, you got to respect them for what they were capable of doing, especially since they repelled us for 20 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we finally decided to go with this guy. We're going, and about two guys behind me which is maybe like 30 feet behind me, an IED goes off. So we've all stepped past this. There's about 18 guys from me to the front of the patrol, and there's like another 20 guys behind me in the patrol. And we're all having to go ranger file, which basically means like one guy in front of the other. We're following the same line because these guys are like one guy in the front has this Balin that I was talking about earlier, the really fancy metal detector, and he's having to trying to find these IEDs. And the Taliban were crafty, and they figure out ways to make it to where it's very, very hard to tell whether or not you're picking up iron ore, just metal in the ground, or if you're picking up a copper wire. Anyway, two guys behind me, about 30 feet, Kenny Coruscant gets blown up by an IED. He's missing up past his knee on his right leg and about 6 inches above that on his left leg, I believe. And so usually when these kinds of things happen, we would have to like immediately start shooting back. If you're in a position where you can shoot back, you just start shooting, because usually what they would do is they pull you into this area, they do the IED first, get a guy injured, and then while all these people are trying to get on them to fix that guy, fix the Marine, that's when they start opening up with machine gun fire or whatever they got. So it's kind of like an ambush, right? So they want to get as many people as they can in one spot, one shooting. And so they start opening fire on us, while a couple of us that weren't able to shoot because we were in the alleyway already, basically me and some of the guys in front of that, basically all tried to like help Coruscant, pull him back behind the alleyway. We're working on him, putting tourniquets on his legs, trying to keep him awake while the doc puts morphine in him, and just making sure his tourniquets are secure, because that's one of the main things. If you don't get those things secured properly, they can bleed out really, really fast. Anyway, so we managed to get Coruscant on a helo. They tell us that we have to stop the patrol, go find a compound, take over, because when the wind conditions and dirt conditions get too crazy, they would shut down your air support. And when that happened, we usually didn't patrol. We didn't go, do much, because we did, you want that lifeline, because if a guy goes down and there's no air support, chances are he's going to die on you. Anyway, so we go to this compound. We stay the night there, and the next morning we continue the patrol to this radio tower. Well, we get closer and closer to the radio tower, and we start taking some actual fire, because it opened up where the radio tower was. It was kind of on the side of a hill, and it dipped down into this like fishbowl type thing, where there's like it dipped down on one side, and then on the front of it, and there's just like all these compounds with windows, doors, everything, all throughout there, anywhere from like 100 yards in front of you all the way out to like 500 or 600 yards. And there's like multiple different doorways, multiple different windows. They're all open, and it's like sketch whenever somebody's shooting at you, because it's really, really hard to figure out where exactly they're coming from, because you got so many avenues to look through and look at, and all this, that, and the other. So we're trying to make our way into this compound. We're taking like pops. There's people like taking pop shots at us. So you hear rounds zip by. That's whenever I realized the real sound of a round that's getting close enough to you, and you know that it's very, very close, like it almost got you. It's not the zzz that you hear that should scare you. It's the zzz, and then your ear goes deaf on whichever side that round was closest to you. So like, for instance, there's one time a round came right by my ear. I heard the zing coming, and then like my left ear went deaf. It was like super weird, like just like the sonic. It was like the sonic whatever's managed to like pop my ear out. Like I couldn't hear for a second. And I was like, wow, that was really, really close. We need to get in this compound. Let's start getting there. Anyway, these guys up front were trying to get into the compound, so we ended up blowing a hole in the side of the compound so that we could go in, because they had already lost the guy's legs on the actual like main doorway. And they're taking fire this whole time. We're shooting at like random spots to try to keep the machine gun fire down. while these guys worked on getting the hole breached so we could go into this compound. And they finally get it open, right? And we're basically having to run into it, right? So there's like a couple of guys, several guys that start running in. We're just running, right? I'm running down this alleyway. It's open to that one side, and there's a wall that's like kind of like about 16 foot on my right side, and I'm having to run down this alleyway and then cut down into the compound. I'm running, like, oh, this is crazy. And that's when machine gun fire like kicks off, and literally I'm getting like debris kicked off the wall, like right next to where I'm at, and there's like debris flying in my face, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I got to get in here. I get in there and run. I'm like, it's just like get there. You're kind of like laugh, like I say, you're like so amped up and everything like that. You're like, what can you do?
Woo!
So you're running, right?
Yeah.
So you get in there, and it was the funniest thing because I run through there, and I'm just like already like high alert, like, wow, this is crazy, this is wild, and I turn around and I'm kind of like just chilling for a minute while these other guys are running in. Well, machine gun fire like really, really picks up, and we had picked up these like two guys from EOD, right, and they were with us because we had found like an IED. They came and helped us take care of it, and then they just joined us for the patrol. Anyway, so these EOD guys, they start running, right? They're running into the compound. I didn't know this, but all I see is like this dude just dive into the compound, and like you hear the machine gun fire, and you just see this dude just dive in, and I just remember like I just couldn't not laugh. Like it was so hysterical to me because like, you're like your nerves are shot. You're just like, well, this is crazy. This ain't anything like a movie, dude. Like, it's just insane. And this guy just comes and runs in, jumps in, he just like plops on the ground. I just like deep guttural laugh. Like it just came out of nowhere. And then everybody else starts laughing. We're like, dude, that was hilarious, We managed to get in.
So you guys all came running in. You all came running in, and then
like
normal, and you guys arrested, and then that dude just booking it and just dove into the door.
What I mean? Like we were like all the rest of us just ran in there normally with bullets flying, and this guy just does like a Rambo stunt and jumps in. We're like, hilarious. Wow, this is wild. But yeah, I just couldn't help myself and started laughing. But yeah, and then
you were telling me that.
What's that?
You were telling me that in times like that, because I often wonder, and I'm sure many people wonder, like, what is it like to be in a firefight? Like, I don't want to know, to be honest, but when you're in it, I would imagine like in that little break when that guy jumped in and dove in, you kind of have to like you said, just laugh at the insanity of everything. Like,
oh yeah, dude. So firefights are one of those interesting things. Like it sketches you out. You hear the zips, and your ear goes deaf. Whatever the case is, like, that happens. Your senses heighten, they go back down. Your senses heighten, they go back down. Like all this stuff is happening. So when you're in a firefight, after a period of time, at least for me, this is what it felt like. I was comfortable in a firefight. I'd rather have bullets flying by me than step on an IED. I'd rather be in a firefight with the Taliban than have to worry about losing my legs. That was one of the biggest things for us. Like it's like super hard, dude.
I think in that documentary for the 2-5,
yeah,
they talk about it. They're like, did it blow his man parts off? Like like that's what they want to know when one of you or your brothers gets hit by an IED. They're like, hey, how far did it take off his legs? And like,
right,
that would be terrifying, man. It's
terrifying because like we even had to like carry our weapon systems higher because if we were like, well, if I'm going to lose my legs, hopefully I don't lose an arm too. Because like, when you're carrying certain heavy weapon systems, you might have it down below your waist. Well, we were like, well, I don't want to lose an arm too, so I'm just going to carry my rifle like way up here on top of my gear. So in the hopes that I step on this thing or it blows up on me, I may lose my legs, but hopefully I don't lose my arms. And that literally happened to one of my buddies he had his hand just a little bit below his waist because he was carrying a 249 saw, and he ended up losing his legs, and it really damaged his hand. He doesn't have the same kind of function with his hand. It's like all kind of like one piece. So it's very hard. Like you get to the point where, well, if I'm in combat, I'd rather take fire than step on an IED. Like that was the thing. Like firefights, like at least for me, quick and easy. It's either going to hit you or it's not. And if it doesn't hit you, you continue shooting back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can't.
This may be a stupid question, but like, how many IEDs did those little bastards plant in the ground? Like, would there be like a fob where you guys are, and then they'd be like, okay, plant them all around this area?
So they would be careful. They were trying to stay. They would do it mostly at night. Dig these IEDs in at night. So it's a little bit harder for us to see them. And then they would also make sure that they weren't in visible contact with us, because if we saw them digging, we had to cleared hot to shoot. Even if we assumed that they were digging in an IED, like they had shovels and they were digging in the ground and looked like it was in the middle of the street, they're getting targeted. So they're crafty people. You have to respect them for what they were. They took like, it took some fertilizer and basically turned it into a bomb, and it was very effective tactic. And you have to give them you have to give them credit. They were a crafty enemy. And like I said earlier, they managed to do this for 20 years. Like they went against the might of American military, and they were able to sustain for 20 years.
Not only that, but then Russia prior.
And Russia too.
80s.
Yeah, Russia was there, and that's where a lot of their training came from, because we sent in special forces back then to train the Mujahideen, and then that later on became the Taliban. So yeah. Anyway, we were fighting those same kind of tactics, guerrilla tactics, and yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was one of those things where you were definitely happier to be in a firefight, at least for me. My thinking process, I'd rather be in a firefight, because if I got shot and it didn't hit me in the head, well, I'm going to have some pain, but I'm not going to be losing my legs, hopefully.
Yeah.
Or my arm.
Yeah, I would be the same way. I would imagine, because yeah, IEDs just sound like just unfair. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, I don't know, like just something just nasty about it. Just real nasty. So the last thing you were talking to me about, the last, homie jumped through Rambo style.
Right.
You guys were taking over that radio tower. That's basically all the stories I know, other than a couple. You don't have to share what you don't want to share. But is there any other story you want to share about the radio tower?
Well, so when we were at the radio tower, so we're still taking fire at the radio tower. We had a couple of guys. We managed to get up to the rooftop of this compound that opened up at the radio tower, that opened up to the whole fishbowl experience, right? And we were like the primary target. We were trying to be the primary target, at least draw some fire. But we were really close to the top of the roof. We're still taking like pop shots and machine gun fire every now and again to like zoom over your head and stuff. We're trying to find these people where these people were. Anyway, we had some really solid like platoon guys. So, like we had sergeants that were phenomenal guys that took good care of us. Like tried to make sure that we were good and safe. Most of the times when stuff got really crazy and hot, they were the guys that went in. So like Logan Stark, Corey Sherwood, Rokar, and Wilmus, like some of these other guys, like I don't know if like maybe they wanted to be in it more, or if that was just like where their heart was behind it, to try to like look after maybe some other guys. I don't know. But yeah, those guys they were down below, and they had cut a hole in the side of this compound. Like I said, it's 12 inches thick, like it's a whole foot thick, right? And he's dug this hole in the side of this compound wall, and they literally get to the point where they're going to break through, because we were trying to create like a small hole that we could see out of and try to fool the Taliban to think that we weren't going to be shooting out of that, you know. And anyway, as soon as they opened up, there was machine gun fire like right into it, like not zipping through it, but like extremely close. They're like, oh shit, you know, like. Anyway, so like they get out of the way of the hole, but they're trying to like look through it and try to find these guys that are shooting at us. And anyway, we get in position, and we're still trying to find where this machine gunner is and where this guy that's taking pop shots. It was like seemed like it was very, very consistent, right? This guy kept. It seemed like every like 3 or 4 minutes, all of a sudden, and then you hear the bullet zip by, and you're like, "Where is this guy at?" And the guy that was behind the gun, behind the sniper rifle at the time, had made a mistake and had his dope set for a certain thing. Didn't wait for. He got excited, and also not only excited, just like in the middle of like this guy's aiming a gun at us. You know, he got excited. Anyway, he had his dope set for a different range. Put the guy in his crosshairs, and he got scared that the guy would disappear before I was able to get the range estimation, or not the range but the range to the target. So he went ahead and pulled the trigger, and ended up missing. That guy disappears. So the guy that was doing the pop shots at us disappeared. And then we kept hearing ICOM chatter, or in this case radio chatter, and we had an interpreter with us, right? So the interpreter's like listening to this radio, and he's like, "Hey man, these Taliban guys are all fake. Like they said there's like a Taliban commander out here, and he's like trying to direct us." So we're all looking around. We see these guys, and basically determined that these guys were the commanders, and we took care of it. It was pretty wild, and it was it was a machine gunner that did the most damage, and he had a really good job. We found, you know, even later, like they were like, "Yeah, you got the Taliban commander." The interpreter told us, is like, "You got the Taliban commander. They're all calling for him, and they're not able to find him, and he's not answering the radio." So we were like, "Heck yeah, dude! We got rid of the bad guys, you know." And you know, like, it's one of those things when you're there in country, you know, it's the guy to the left and right of you. That's the guys that you're trying to make sure gets to go home, and you're willing to do any and all things and everything for those guys to make sure they get to come home. So yeah, that was probably the most craziest thing that I can remember, as far as like right off the bat.
But the day that the radio tower, that whole story, leading up to that story, you said your friend, like, they blew an IED on him. Was that a part of that story? Like, you guys had to rush into that radio tower?
Yeah, that was all part of that. So that was the beginning of the patrol. So we hadn't made it to the radio tower, and then but we were en route to it. Took the IED blast, had to go stop for the night, wait until we had air support again, and then the next day we ended up going all the way to the radio tower. So that's all like within 2 days.
I don't mean to ask or be out of pocket, but did your friend who got the IED and you put the tourniquets on him and stuff, did he survive that whole time?
Was he
evac'd like right away after?
He was medevac'd, yeah.
Okay,
so he was medevac'd, and he managed. I can't remember where he managed his final place where he managed to get to, but they were doing some surgeries and he ended up dying on the table. So we lost 25 guys. 25 guys over there, 240 or 200 plus casualties, meaning like broken legs, people shot, people missing legs in an arm, like pretty brutal combat, you know. Like we got to see some stuff, and that was only within like an 8-month period that all that happened. And it was so bad that they had decided to send in bits and pieces of another unit to try to replenish us while we were there, because we had lost that many guys.
So the documentary for the 2-5 Um, dang, like that was, is that normal for them to replenish, or is it normal for basically you're in there, you guys are doing your thing, new group comes, boom, you're good, you're out? Or was that unique that they tried to replenish you guys because you guys had lost so many?
That was pretty much unique for our situation. It was a bad deployment. Not many units got to see, or not didn't get to see, but 3-5 had taken a really big hit for that whole thing, and that was kind of unusual for a battalion to go through and have to try to replenish. They brought in I think a whole nother company of Marines. So,
Wow.
like, yeah, it was pretty rough. And then, and then that being said, you come home and you survive this hell, and then you come to find out, like I've told you the other day, it's been almost 12 years since Afghanistan, and since then we've lost 20, almost the same amount of guys to suicide. So, like, it's like heartbreaking, and when it happens, you don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say or think about it. It's like, it's hard to, like, when that happens, it's just like,
Yeah,
yeah, dude.
I can't imagine. For the 2-5, the documentary, I'm gonna put it in the link on YouTube so anybody can watch it. It'll be right there underneath the video. It's a really good documentary about Matt Long and his brothers, basically, and what he's been talking about. What I did notice is Kevin and Logan, they said, it was the weirdest thing, and you can attest, you get back home after all this stuff, and first thing you do is you start partying, is what they all said, and then the party doesn't stop. But
Yeah.
they also said, we had just been through this crazy battles for the last 8 months, and then we come back and I'm supposed to get a job at Home Depot now. Like that, it is a mind. It screws with your mind when you think about what you guys went through, and then think about you guys coming back home and and for them to, and then you're kind of just released back into the public and just like, hey, figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
is there a lot of vet stuff that you know of that like helps with people processing this kind of thing? Because, for instance, I listen to podcasts all the time and they're like, we're sponsored by BetterHelp. I'm sure you're stressed out, your workday's been tough,
Yeah.
get some BetterHelp. Yeah, okay, try to be a Marine and then come back home. I don't think BetterHelp's going to help you with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, what kind of vet things
There's
do they have?
there's there's programs out there. I think it's lack of ability for a lot of vets to get a hold of it. One, to, like, find out about these programs. One, not only that, if they do hear about it, sometimes vets have a hard time admitting that there is a problem.
Yeah.
That you like, oh, well, you're supposed to be a Marine, adapt and overcome, kill the enemy, like, that's what we're meant to do, that's what we do. And you got to be hard, stay frosty, like all that, Call of Duty nonsense that they stay on there, and all that and the other. And then afraid to admit they have a problem. And then I think more importantly is I think a lot of vets, be honest with you, are under the impression that they can't tell their story to people that don't understand. Um, I had a different mindset. I didn't come home and party. That wasn't my main focus. I came back to what I thought was my rock. That was now my wife, but then at the time my girlfriend. Um, and and honestly, like, she helped me through it all. Like, we wrote letters to each other and all this, that, and the other. I think that was a big help, having her. And then coming back home, the family was supportive. Like, hey, take your time with telling us and stuff like that. But when you're ready to talk to us, if you want to talk to us, talk to us. If not, then don't. And then I was pretty open about a lot of different things. And I feel like that a lot of veterans are under the impression that, oh, because you won't understand if I start telling you these things, then you'll look down on me, or you'll shame me, or you're weak or whatever the case is. They're under the impression that they can't talk about it with civilians. And sometimes that might be true. You got to test the waters, but I did not care who or what people thought about it. Whenever it was on my mind or when somebody asked me a question, I just talk about it. And you know how I do it. I don't care what people thought. I just got to get off my chest. When it pops up. But yeah, I think there are some programs out there. I couldn't tell you which ones are there. I know there's but there are several of them out there. You just gotta, it's one of those things where you're gonna have to look into.
I just want to, the more I looked into this and I knew I was going to have you on the pod, and you were like, hey, if I'm going to be on the pod, you got to watch For the 25. And you sent me some other videos, and I watched them, and I just was thinking to myself, these guys are my age. Like they chose a different path, and I could have very easily chosen that path. And a part of me wanted to, but I didn't. And I think to myself, man, I hope they get that help. I hope they have the rock like your wife, somebody in their life to help them get through it. Cause I don't know. Like there was a guy on For the 25. He was with Matthew. What was that guy's last name?
Matthew Abate, yeah.
Abate. He was with him when he passed, and like what was his name?
So Jordan Laird, yeah. Jordan Laird was with Matthew Abate in country, and some stuff went sideways. He ended up catching some shrapnel in I can't remember if it was his jugular or his temple, but basically ended up Jordan Laird was there with him. Like the guy was like the beast, dude. Like he was the beast of us. He kept the platoon, and they mentioned that in For the 25. Logan Stark did a great job with that documentary. It was just a school project, and you gotta love what he did, because I mean he shined a light on something that's not talked about a lot of but yeah, Matthew Abate, beast of a man. Everyone looked up to him, solid dude. And yeah, he ended up catching shrapnel and died en route. So Jordan Laird was with him up until the point when they put him on the helo, and then on his way to go get taken care of, he ended up passing away. But yeah, he was a badass, for lack of any better word. He was a badass because he ended up getting a Silver Star Silver Cross, I believe. And so, yeah, dude, this guy, phenomenal dude. And anyway, he yeah, sad to see him go, dude.
Yeah, Jordan, he in that For the 25, he was one of the guys that impressed me the most. Like he was writing letters to his girlfriend or wife who he had a kid, and he would say he was always just talking on the documentary, saying, hey honey, we're giving him hell, all this stuff. And then it fast forward to him maybe 5 years after deployment, and he's talking about Matthew, and I can tell because in the documentary talking about PTSD or whatever and all that, Jordan said, I looked at it like, you're a bad warrior if you get PTSD. I'm not going to get that. Like, that's weakness. I'm not weak. I'm a savage. And then he ended up getting it pretty bad, especially the guilt of Matthew passing. And yeah, I thank you for telling your story, on here. And I know if a vet comes across this, I'm sure he's going to be happy to hear your take on everything that happened, and like also how you are now, man. Like you've given your rock to the Lord. I know that. And also your wife. And if I'm being honest, you turned out pretty good. Like, I don't know if I would be as, just as chill as you are. But yeah, I kind of want to shift the convo in a different direction. Uh, so you and I have been friends for, I don't know, 5 years maybe, and we work pretty close to each other. So we see all the stuff that's been going on, you
Right.
know, from the evacuation of Afghanistan under Biden, from COVID-19 and all this stupid stuff. And I'm sure people are tired of hearing about it and whatnot, but we've come to some of our own conclusions of what we think's going on. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Just our
And
speculation, you know.
yeah,
Some of it speculation, some of it not.
yeah. I mean, we were pretty Alex Jones during that whole 2020,
Oh dude.
2021, the
Hard.
freaking vaccines. Um, but
Real quick,
sorry.
Abate had the Navy Cross. I don't know why I got that all jacked up, but Navy
Don't worry
Cross.
about it.
Anyway, yeah. So with Alex Jones and all that stuff, yeah, dude, it's well, I mean, like, the world was going crazy, dude. We hadn't seen anything like it. We were hearing, like, China was what looked like people dropping like flies, like there was people dying everywhere, like within 24 to 48 hours after they caught COVID, they're dying. It's in the sewage, man. It's going through the sewage, and like all these different headlines and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I was like, well, what is going on here? And that led me to, of course, to like, think outside the box. But before I get to that, I have to tell you like what basically got me into conspiracy to let me get more skeptical on so many different levels on different things that go on, right? One, I was working at a job site, and I was all about George W. Bush. He was from Texas. He's my boy. Like that's my boy. And Iraq, like, oh yeah, Afghanistan, joined the Marine Corps. I was all gun ho about like America. Yes, I still am gun ho about America, just not quite our government.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't trust it, I would
I
say.
understand.
Anyway, so he tells me, we're having this debate / argument about it, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you about 9/11, not going to argue about George Bush. What I want you to go do is go home and research Operation Northwood. And he's like, nope, don't talk about anything else. We're not going to, don't even talk to me until you've done this homework, basically. And I was like, that's interesting. What is this guy, what's this guy leading up to? And so I go home, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to look this up. Wikipedia, right? So this is, Wikipedia of all things. You think that, if this was as incriminating as it is, they would like delete this from existence. However, they haven't. And it was a proposed, like, you can look this up on Wikipedia. So like, just do it. Just do it.
Real quick, just according to Lane Kendall, because he's been a guest on the pod.
Right.
Anybody can edit Wikipedia.
That's true. You could do that. That is correct. The thing is, that's usually the first place you go to. But if you just look up Operation Northwood, you can find several other different places to.
I believe it's true. So you go ahead and explain what that is.
It's as true as what they're allowed to let us know, right? And if anyone could edit it, I don't know why they would edit this to be as condemning as it is. Okay. And not to mention there's U.S. top secret documents that have been released after a certain period of time. They release these documents and you're able to read it. So go find that if you have to. Okay. But look up Operation Northwood, a proposed false flag operation against American citizens that originated within the U.S. Department of Defense and United States government in 1962. So like, wait, what? What a false flag operation? What? Coming from the U.S. Department of Defense, signed by the Joint Chief of Staff at the time. Then it went to JFK. Well, what happened to JFK? He was assassinated. I mean, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Hey, there's a lot of, like, I don't know if he's assassinated because of this particular thing. Could have been any number of other things, but it was just like, say what? The proposal called for CIA operatives to both stage and actually commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets, blaming them on the Cuban government and using it to justify a war against Cuba. To get the whole idea to get everybody else involved with Cuba. Cuba's the bad guy. Look at what they're doing. Hey, let's go fight Cuba. Yeah. Um,
They would
and it
never
was
give us.
rejected by JFK.
They would never like force a vaccination on us or anything to kill us. Of
Oh
course
no,
not.
of course not.
Of
No, no,
course
no,
not.
no, no.
Um,
Or make you think that your choice in doing things like voting are legitimately yours. I don't know, man.
no,
We've had these conversations before. I co-align with the conservative side, not even necessarily Republican, the conservative side,
Same here.
but yet I don't believe that Democrats or Republicans are the answers to the problem. I think a lot of them are both corrupt. A lot of them are shady people. And it gets into the whole like Klaus Schwab. It gets into like the young global leaders. When you start talking about those guys, you had that video that I think you're gonna put in the link, right?
Yeah. I'll even play some of it right now.
Yeah. So you have.
So like you were saying, R's and D's. Like I don't think that's the answer anymore either, because both sides. You've seen with the Bushes what the R's can do. Now you're seeing with Biden what the Dems can do. And it's just confusing as a voter or as an American, because I feel like most Americans are like, I want my country back. Like
Right.
I want things back to the way that our country was founded on. Right now we're running amok. We're running chaos, and I think it started from Klaus Schwab and Yuval Noah Abari, or what's his last name?
Harari.
Yuval Noah Harari. Look that
Right.
mother effer up. That guy is Satan's little dog or something. But
Yeah, he says some pretty wild things. Like he
yeah,
goes, he's directly attacking Christianity, directly attacking and basically openly talking about like the mark of the beast, talking about how in the future you will have no free will and like you'll be tracked and traced and there will be no such thing as privacy. I mean, these guys are like openly talking about these
yeah.
things.
And we're gonna know more about you than you even know yourself, is what they
Right.
say. And
Right.
you will own nothing, and you will be happy. And we're
Right.
seeing with BlackRock, we're like the video that I'm gonna put in the link of his name is Awaken with JP, is that's his YouTube handle, and I strongly urge anybody listening to this to just click the link below. I'll have two. I'll have one of for the 25, and then I'll have another one, Awaken with JP. So JP basically breaks down. People wonder a lot, like, oh man, especially when you dive into looking into who's making decisions, because everybody's like, who the heck is making decisions right now? Because it is not, all the decisions seem to be going against America. And
Right.
so when you look at who's making the decision, I believe it is Klaus Schwab. I believe it is Yuval, whatever, like Noah Harari,
Yuval. Just
Yuval
Yuval.
Noah Harari, and also what's the group that they're in?
So most of these guys, or at least Klaus Schwab. So Klaus Schwab has a school. So not only did he develop the World Economic Forum, where they have, and Davos, like he speaks at Davos. You should really listen to what this guy has to say. He praises Xi Jinping for his authoritarian, stuff in China, and his response to COVID, which if you know anything about it, it was pretty horrible, at least from the standpoint of being American. Um, so you have this guy, Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum. He also has what's called Young Global Leaders, and so that list is an interesting thing because there's this process that these people have to go through to get accepted into this like training or this schooling, and he's the main guy of it. Like he's the guy that's in charge of that kind of that schools. Like these are all pupils, you could say, of Klaus Schwab, and you have people like Justin Trudeau, Vladimir Putin. Those are all young global leaders. Bill Gates was one of the first people to go through this guy's school. We all, kind of sketched out about Bill Gates, not just a nerd, but
It makes no sense to me too. Like I was asking you the other day. I was like, isn't Bill Gates? Didn't he like create software for computers?
Right.
Like, why is he delegating like vaccines and all this other stuff? Like, somehow he went from this computer nerd. Supposedly he stole it. I don't know. I won't even get into that. But so we got this computer nerd, and now all of a sudden he's one of the best health guys in the world. It makes no sense to me at all. And
Yeah, no, he's a health expert. That
wow, he looks like
Fauci gets to talk about, but when anybody else that's not, like a president that's trying to save lives and says you should use hydroxychloroquine, and then they're like, well, you're not a expert, but Bill Gates is evidently,
yeah.
even though he has no prior background in anything medical.
Joe Rogan, who's like a ripped gorilla, tells you to take ivermectin. I'm gonna believe him, and then you got
Right.
Bill Gates, who looks like a roasted marshmallow over fire, just drooping everywhere. And it's like, why would I believe you in health, dude? You can't even take care of yourself. But
Yeah.
back to Klaus Schwab and all these guys. Let me play a little bit of this video. I'm only gonna play just a tad bit. Give me 1 second, Matt.
Yeah.
Share the screen. Klaus Schwabidob.
There he is.
There he is. Okay, let me play this video real quick.
Evolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us. The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
Yeah. Editing your genes? Cool. I'll explain that later. But first, why do so many people consider this guy, Klaus Schwab, to be the most dangerous man in the world? Well, there's some reasons. You might remember Klaus Schwab as the puddle of liquefied feces who said, by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy about it. Translated, that probably means by 2030, he'll own everything and he'll be happy about it. But how does he expect you to own nothing and be happy about it? Oh, he's got a plan. Now, I'll tell you about it in a minute. But before I do, a little bit about Klaus Schwab. He's the author of COVID-19, The Great Reset. What a grand opportunity indeed. Oh, and his book was published on July 9th, 2020. Wonder how he got it written and published that fast. It's almost like maybe he pre-wrote it before he started the pandemic. Before the pandemic started. Old Klaus is also the founder and chairman of the World Economic Forum, an organization that faces the public with very noble-sounding goals of creating a better world. Fear-mongering about climate change and disease are big goals of theirs. Welcome to Davos. Just park your private jet over there and then go inside and pretend to be concerned with climate change. Klaus and the World Economic Forum want a worldwide digital ID system that determines your access to goods and services. It would monitor your online behavior, purchases, and biometrics. It kind of seems like he just wants to do away with the whole democratic process and give all the power to the state and whoever runs the state, the deep state. But that's based on both his words and actions, so it's probably an inaccurate observation. Was Dr. Evil's character based on this reptile? Mr. Schwab writes the following. One of the greatest lessons of the past 5 centuries in Europe and America is this. Acute crisis contribute to boosting the power of the state. It's always been the case, and there is no reason why it should be different with the pandemic. Nobody ever elected Klaus Schwab to anything. This all just sounds like conspiracy, doesn't it? The World Economic Forum are good guys. Haven't you seen the headlines they pay for? Go green, right? Right? That's probably right. They truly are good guys. Accordingly, you'll be excited to hear that the lineup of World Economic Forum speakers at their annual gathering of elites in Davos included such benevolent humanitarians like Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, who's currently committing genocide, Anthony Fauci, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity, and Bill Gates, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity, and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity. What a great lineup! But my favorite economic forum speaker of all time is this reptile, Klaus Schwab's top advisor, Dr. Yuval Noah Harari. Let's see what he has to say.
Data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it.
Elites hacking organisms and re-engineering life itself? Well, he's not talking about doing that to people, is he?
Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people.
Well, I guess he was talking about doing that to people. All people, to be specific.
And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life 4 billion years ago. For 4 billion years, nothing fundamental changed.
Not playing God, are you? Because that usually works out super well.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds.
Oh, you are playing God. Say more.
Evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution.
Gosh, you wouldn't by chance have a plan in place on how to control people with your cloud technology, would you? And that plan isn't by chance already being implemented, is it?
Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale.
Oh, so you could implement it.
In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste.
Sounds familiar. And I guess you are implementing it already. Didn't anyone bother telling this guy not to say any of this out loud on camera? It's a lot of evidence.
Surveillance. People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin. My brain, my body, my life, does it belong to me or to some corporation or to the government or perhaps to the human collective?
This guy's revealing the whole plan. He's going to ruin it. The World Economic Forum, out for the good of humanity. You'll own nothing, not even your own DNA, if we have our way. Now for some additional fun facts about Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. They've got a Young Leaders Program, which is a 5-year indoctrination program into their principles. The goal of the program is to create world leaders who don't answer to their people because they don't care about them. They answer to their bosses at the World Economic Forum. Graduates of the program include admirable world leaders that are suspiciously in lockstep with the Great Reset, such as Justin Trudeau, Francis Macron, and Mark Zuckerberg. Sponsoring partners of the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders Program have been the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Google. I wonder why Google censors and shapes information to be in exact support of the World Economic Forum's narrative. Oh, another fun fact. The World Economic Forum is predicting a worldwide cyber attack. I'm pretty much a wizard at predicting the things I'm going to do, too. The very concerned Schwab believes the cyber attack could bring a complete halt to our power grid, transportation, hospital services, and to our society as a whole. The World Economic Forum then simulated the cyber attack. Simulated or planned? I'm not sure, but they said it was a simulation, so it's probably best to just believe them. Oh, also the World Economic Forum, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201, which oddly enough played out exactly as they planned, or simulated, or whatever. Let's move on. And here's a picture of Klaus Schwab sitting in front of a statue of Vladimir Lenin. I wonder why he's got a statue of one of the most murderous world leaders in history. Lenin killed an estimated 5 million people. And finally, remember Schwab's whole thing about you'll own nothing and be happy about it? What's the World Economic Forum's plan to make that happen? Well, it's probably nothing, but consider this. BlackRock is an investment firm with $9 trillion under management, which is a higher GDP than every country on Earth, aside from the US and China. Therefore, it turns out BlackRock has more political and financial influence than the Federal Reserve and most governments. Sounds cool, but what's the connection with a World Economic Forum? Well, again, and it's probably nothing, but BlackRock CEO Larry Fink is also just a board member of the World Economic Forum. Well, that's super convenient and probably just a coincidence. Is the World Economic Forum and BlackRock colluding in corporatism, where an unelected corporate elite dictates top down to the population? Well, they couldn't be doing that because they'd have to infiltrate the government, which they haven't done. Except for, in one of Joe Biden's first appointees once he took office, he named Brian Deese to be the director of National Economic Council. Brian Deese came from BlackRock, where he was a global head of sustainable investing, and now he's Biden's main advisor for economic policy. But Biden's making the policy decisions, not the unelected corporate elites at BlackRock and the World Economic Forum. Of course, Biden's making all the decisions. Let's not be silly.
Anyways, that you get a real good idea of what's going on when you watch that. And I didn't think we were gonna watch it that long, but I don't care. That was
dude. What was funny? So from I don't know if it's my internet or not, but it was funny because my screen froze on where you saw Leonardo DiCaprio and Joe Biden sitting next to each other going.
Oh, that's perfect. Because I assume in the recording it'll be the same. I mean, it's hard for all that stuff to line up, but man,
Yeah.
that video is super telling. Like I used to sit back and be like, man, who are these people? Like, who's pulling the strings? But clearly Klaus Schwab is, and all them. I have no doubt in my mind that's who's running the show. That's who's, fighting, who's delegating with Russia right now, trying to cause World War III. Like they want this, and I don't know how the hell this train is gonna stop. I don't know. Like you feel kind of hopeless, and like, but yeah. I do hold on to hope, though. I do.
Yeah, we talked about that. Not going too far down the Christian rabbit hole, but like that's honestly like that's also one of the biggest things that helped me through my time in the Marine Corps and combat and everything. And then also when I got out, and then dealing with this kind of stuff, so you can hear it, you listen to it. Like and I'll talk to you about things, and sometimes I feel like it can really bother you, but I'm just like coming up to you and talking to you about it, right? And I don't know, maybe my mind's warped because of what I've been through.
This is what you tell me. I'm sitting there welding, having a nice little whatever happy-go-lucky day, and then you come up to me and you go like this: Russia has a warhead called the Satan II. And guess what? That thing can travel at hypersonic speed, and it can carry up to 14 nuclear warheads, and we have nothing to shoot it down with, and it'll be here in 18 minutes. Right. And it's like, you come up and tell me that, and I'm just like, oh, mother trucker. Like, that's whenever I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. Like, yeah. And then my brain starts turning. Like, I can clearly, the Democrats have always wanted to, cause a war with Russia. I don't know what they're super butthurt with Russia. And for some odd reason, they think it's a good idea to piss them off. Right. And I'm like, why are you guys pissing them off like crazy? Like, and yeah, so be aware of that.
While our military is worried about wokeness, their military is, worried about building better bombs and better missiles.
Yeah, we got missiles from like the 70s, 80s, yeah.
80s and 90s.
They've been developing their missiles
consistently.
Yeah,
now, granted, this goes also back to what we're told and what we think we know versus what's the reality. But that's if if we don't get into conspiracy, then according to what information we have is we don't have hypersonic missiles. We don't have a missile that can travel at 16,000 miles per hour and has the capability of 14, 15 nuclear head missile. When I was telling you about the Satan II, pretty gnarly, dude.
Oh,
when you listen to what that thing is, and I guess it's in active service now. Like that's a missile they have now. It just came out now. And that missile can travel at 16,000 miles per hour, and it has the ability, so depending on the size of the nuclear warheads, they can fit anywhere from 10 of the big ones or 14 or 15 of the smaller ones. And it has the ability to throw flares out if something does manage to catch it at traveling at, stupid speeds. What I mean? Like what, the best hope you have is that Russia doesn't lose their marbles. And we're led to believe that he's a fascist, crazy man. Well, that fascist, crazy man has the power to the most powerful nuclear bomb in existence, as far as I know. And
you would think you wouldn't want to piss him off,
right?
Like that's all I'm saying is, hey, can we delegate issues that are at hand in a better way? But clearly, I mean, us Americans, we look at our freaking leader and we're like, oh crap. Like that's how I see what our leadership is and I go, oh crap. That's scary. But yeah, it's funny to me because it's like the fear mongering is real. Like and I understand that. So like I take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. You know, at first the vaccines, they're going to kill you. And then this nuclear bomb, but like, I mean, it's terrifying diving into it. And I've gotten better at just being like, taking it in and being like, all right, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's one, I do have hope, but I have hope in the people of America. I have hope. I think what's happening now is these idiots like the ones in the military who want to have tampons in men's restrooms. I think they're a very small group with a very, very big voice. Yeah. And the majority, probably 95% of America does not think that way. And it's not that I have anything against certain people. Like if you're gay and you're pro America or whatever, like as long as there's something going on of a manipulation of these groups that they're pushing this stuff. And I don't necessarily think it represents them. Like I said, I think it just represents this small group of people. And I think it lines up with Klaus Schwab and all them. And they're the ones giving them the voice and making this seem like the reality of where everything's at. And in reality, I talk to you, I talk to other guys, I talk to some Democrats, I talk to a lot of people, and for the most part, they do love America, and they do care for their fellow man. But I just feel like there's a lot of fear mongering, and it's behind. Like that guy says at the end of the video, he's like, this has been going on since kings were around. Kings would say God is going to send a storm, and it's going to kill all of your crops and possibly you, unless you let me bang your wife. And then, and so, okay, here you go. And then, all right, God's going to spare you, buddy. So they're doing the same thing, but they're doing it with global warming's going to kill you. These power outages are going to destroy the economic structure of America. But, we have the answers. They create the crisis, and then everybody freaks out, and then they come in with the answer, whether it's COVID and then this vaccine, which I do believe freaking yuval Noah Harari, whatever, the little weasel looking dude, he says the surveillance goes under the skin, and it's like, sounds like a vaccine.
Yeah, so that's what's interesting, right? So when you start digging into some things, you look at and I talked to you a little bit about this, but U.S. patent 060606. So this is something that a lot of people can look up on their own. You can go to Google Patents or look up, do a Google search, do patent, U.S. patent 060606. And you'll find out that Microsoft Technology Licensing, so Bill Gates' old Microsoft company, that he built, applied for this particular patent in 2000 and let's see, international filing date 2019, publication date 2020. How convenient. But anyway, in this thing, so I guess I could do. I don't know how to do the screen share thing, but
don't worry about
if
it.
you could pull it up or whatever the case is. But anyway, so it's a server. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Body activity data may be generated based on the sensed body activity of the user. The cryptocurrency system Wow, I can't talk right now. It communicates to the device of the user and may verify if the body activity data satisfies one or more conditions set by the cryptocurrency system and award cryptocurrency to the user whose body activity data is verified. What does that mean? It sounds like to me, judging by the the photo that they have with the patent, there's sensors. It has a human person. Let's see if I can do that. Oh, that's too bright. Oh no. Anyway, you'll have to look it up. Just look it up, dude. It's pretty fascinating. But it has a dude on it, a little stick man type thing. To the left or to the right of that, it has sensors, and then that goes to the user's device. That's connected to the cloud, which this guy Noah talks about, or yuval. Yep. And then it goes to a server, right? And then it also goes to the cryptocurrency reward system. So that sounds kind of like a social credit score, right? Like that TV show, what do you say, Black Mirror?
Black Mirror, yeah.
That first episode, right?
Yeah, it
sounds just like it.
Yeah, one of the first episodes. If you guys haven't seen Black Mirror, clearly you're living under a rock, but it's one of the best. I know you haven't, but
I know about it though.
But so one of the episodes, this girl, it's basically this social credit score type thing. She has a phone. She goes and gets coffee, and she's like, "Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You look beautiful today." And then the barista or whatever is like, "You look fabulous too." And they swipe up, and it's like, 5-star. Goes to their credit. She goes to work. She runs into other people. "Billy, I love your shirt. That thing, like, it's the best shirt. It's just 5 stars." And then she goes to apply for an apartment, and she has to be a 4.8, and she's like a 4.6. So then her best friend invites her to a wedding, and her best friend and all of her friends are all 5 stars, and like they're the elites, I guess. So they're killing it. They're rich and all that stuff. So if she goes to the wedding and gives the best woman speech, she's going to be able to get that apartment because it's going to go from a 4.6 to probably a 4.9. And she ends up screwing it all up along the way, and she goes down to a 0. They actually take out her like sensor and put her in jail because she like shows up. Yeah, I won't ruin it for everybody, but like if you haven't seen it, check out Black Mirror. I'm not sure what the episode is. It's the girl from Jurassic World, the redhead. She's the main actress in it. She kills it. But yeah, it really does sound like
that's where they're going.
That's where they're going, and I'm just like,
they want. And that's whatever bit of humanity that they want around, because when you get into like the Georgia Guidestones, when you get into like some of what Bill Gates talks about, like Bill Gates talks about depopulation, he says it in a much nicer way, but they start talking about like the whole idea is to maintain. When you look up the Georgia Guidestones, written in 4 or 7 of the major languages of the world, and they all say the same tenets. One of the tenets is maintain the human population under 500 million. I mean, I don't know how and why that stone is up and running, but there's an interesting story that you can Google and look into as to how and why those Georgia Guidestones are there. Then you start looking into That's what they want to bring the population under, and then they want to survey and take away their free will, take away their privacy to make sure that these people don't have the unction of their own. Like they have to live this fake life because they want to be basically be gods over people. They want to separate themselves from humanity and transcend, going this whole transhuman type thing. It's just like this, going back to the whole U.S. patent 060606. I talked to you today about Dr. Lieber or Charles Lieber. I talked to you about like how the fact of like how would they get these sensors and all this, that, and the other. Well, interesting fact about like nanotechnology. I didn't realize how far along this stuff was until I found out about this guy. So this guy was arrested and got sentenced for lying on his tax returns or lying about his ties to China and lying about his taxes. So like it didn't get in much trouble, not treason, which is crazy because this guy got grants for $15 million by the U.S. to work on this technology, and then got $50,000 from the Chinese 1,000 Talent Program to work on this technology for Wuhan, which is around the same area where magically COVID came from. Very, very interesting. But this guy worked with graphene, nanotechnology, and interfacing human cells, had Chinese connections. He was arrested with 2 other of his colleagues. But a little bit about him. He was a world-leading scientist in the field of nanowire technology and interfacing with human biology and neurology at the microscopic level, and is an inventor of 50 patents in the field. He had a transitor that was the size of a virus, like he invented this, which could penetrate the membrane of a cell without disrupting cell function. Also had the ability to create a nanowire mesh, a folded net of nanowires which can self-assemble later and capable of attaching itself to human neurons. So when he's talking about when and this kind of all connected when I found out about yuval, right? So like, because Charles Lieber seemed like a story that was kind of separated from things, right? I just happened to stumble across him and started researching him. And then I went through the Klaus Schwab thing and then like kind of like connected a few things together, right? Because this guy connected, you don't hear nothing about him on the news. I don't recall anything about him on the news, or even like a lot of like conspiracy podcasts. You don't even hear much about this guy, which is very, very interesting because like this guy was, according to this, like way, way ahead of what people thought it was. Like the ability to create nanoscale sensors in the human body. So like how would we get this, system that, would read our body activity and determine what's going on, this guy is the guy, and he was working for both China and America.
Have you found anything on him in the World Economic Forum?
I haven't found anything yet on any of that kind of stuff. I think it all connects, like, in the military / when you're dealing with like covert type situations, compartmentalize, right? It's just like, think of like our work, right? We don't necessarily all work on copper and cast iron and steel. Like me and you don't do that. Like we work specifically with the steel. So we're compartmentalized to the steel or the piping, or the gas and all that stuff. Whereas copper's over here working on that. Now, picture if if our company were to say, hey, you can't talk about what you're working on and for and about. You can't talk about that to these guys over here. So you have different guys working on different things, and they may not know the wide scale story of what's going on, but they're working on particular things and getting driven into working on those things.
Sounds like that guy who said he worked on an alien craft.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, that's literally how these things work. I mean, like,
yeah,
secret things work,
I get that. Yeah. Yeah. There's different sections. So maybe this guy was in this category over here, definitely reported to this guy, but wasn't in the mix.
Right. Maybe, or maybe he was and, knew everything that was going on, but and they disappeared him, who knows?
Yeah, I no longer speculate like who's behind a lot of this. I think it's the World Economic Forum. and I think it's Klaus Schwab, Yuval Noah Harari. And I think if you have any questions, just Google those people and it will line up for you just like it did for me. I used to think all the time, I don't know if they're the top dog, but they are definitely the cronies of these whoever's running this crap. But Matt, we're at 2 hours.
I know, dude. I looked at that and I was like, wow, okay. That went quick.
I didn't realize it, but I could talk to you. Actually, yeah, I did know, but we could talk for a long, long time. I gotta eat some dinner though. And
yeah, me too, man.
Good talk, man. Thanks for sharing your story about your time in Iraq or Afghanistan. Sorry. Matt got mad at me on Lane's podcast because I didn't know where Afghanistan was. So I
didn't get mad. I said
get mad. You said you
gotta
figure out where that stuff's at. I was like, you're right. And so I went home, got a map, and I was like, okay, I know where this is at. And so the next day I was like, yeah. Anyways, so I got that one question that I'm gonna ask everybody at the end of the podcast, and it is, what is your most memorable quote that you've heard that kind of just sticks with you and you think about?
So I would say most memorable. It was both shocking and from experience, it seems to be just kind of true. So, and that would be from Ernest Hemingway. I told you about this. He had made a quote of, "There is no hunting like the hunting of man, and those who have hunted armed men long enough and liked it never care for anything else thereafter." So like crazy quote, crazy things, but like it's when you talk about like hunters, like big game hunters and all this, that, and the other, there's nothing more dangerous than another human being. We are pretty crafty creatures. We think of things. We think of ways around things, and honestly, it's true. It's hard to compare when you've done that. It's wild. It's a wild feeling.
I can only imagine, man.
Yeah. But yeah, there's like several others, but I think that was probably one of the craziest and memorable quotes. There's several others that I can't think of right off the top of my head that I could probably paraphrase, but I don't want to butcher the quote.
It's all good. I kind of I had a guest, Morgan Choate, on, and he talked about hunting a bear, and when you put it like that, that is the craziest hunt for sure.
Yeah.
And like it says in the quote, there's nothing like it again.
No.
Thanks for your service, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. All right, brother. Take care.
You too.
Home when you look. You're right. Your daddy was home when you look. You're right. Your sister was home when you look. You're right. Your father was home when you look. You're right. Your dog was home when you look. You're right. Your cat was home when you look. You're right. The fish was home when you look. You're right. Your mommy, your daddy, your brother, your sister, the dog, the cat, the fish was home when you look. You're right. And that's the reason you look. You're right. I left my home. I left my home. To join the army. To join the army. I left my home. I left my home. To join the army. To join the army. The day I left. The day I left. My mama cried. My mama cried. She thought that I would surely die. Would surely die. I left my work. I left my work. Right at the door. Right at the door. She knew that I would die at war. Would die at war. I left my son. I left my son. Playing in the yard. Playing in the yard. See that lead. See that lead. They cry so hard. They cry so hard. Oh, we, oh, we. 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 Well, we join the army. We join the army.